Okay, so let us come back to the suttas again. And yesterday we had a look at the some of the benefits of living well, the idea of living a life of wisdom and a life of virtue and all of these things, and what happens when you do that. And now we're just going to continue. I'm going to continue with a few more verses, because I think these verses are very inspiring and they're very full of meaning. And there's a wealth of meaning in these things. You can draw it all out, and you can talk about the Dhamma in some nice ways by using these famous verses of the Buddha. This is all from the Devata saṃyutta, the connected discourses on devas, on gods, if you like. And if you want to read them yourself, you find a lot of very nice and inspiring verses in that collection in the Saṃyutta Nikāya. So the first verse today is from the collection. This is the 73rd Sutta. And this is how it goes. Faith is here a man's best treasure. Dhamma practiced well brings happiness. Truth is really the sweetest of tastes. One living by wisdom, they say, lives best. So this is very similar to some of the things that I have talked about already. And so I'm going to probably go through this fairly quickly. Here, the idea that faith is a person's best treasure. Well, is again similar to what I was talking about yesterday, about when you have no faith in a thing, when you have no spiritual life, when you have nothing, no wisdom teaching to guide you in your life. Life can often seem very dry and joyless and empty and purposeless and no meaning here. You're not actually going anywhere, just going around and round, doing the same thing in your life. And this is what the Buddha said in that there's a very famous sutta where the Buddha talks about the 5 hindrances. One of the hindrances is the hindrance of doubt. Doubt is almost like the opposite of faith. And when you have too much doubt and you don't have any faith in something, it means that your life is dry. You have no visions for the journey. You have nothing to keep you going. There's no purpose to the whole thing. It's just, you go through life and there is nothing there to kind of give it the moisture and the happiness and the nourishment that comes from having a purpose and having a meaning and moving towards a sense of a real goal in life, a real purpose. So faith, this reason, is a treasure, because it is, especially when you have faith in something useful, that is, of course, the underlying meaning here. It's not just any kind of faith, but it is faith that is based on some real teaching, the saddhamma, the true Dhamma, and not just any kind of faith, of course. So faith is very important, and of course, again, it is a treasure because it is very close to the idea of wisdom in Buddhism, very close to the idea of right view. In Buddhism, faith and wisdom are very closely related to each other. Right view and faith are very closely related to each other, and these things cannot really be separated apart. They really come as part and parcel of the same thing. And this is kind of interesting, that wisdom and faith are almost like two sides of the same coin. They are not really, you cannot really pull them apart. And of course, that is one of the reasons why it is such a profound treasure, because it has a deep aspect to it. Then it says that Dhamma practiced well brings happiness. Or you could say that the teaching bring happiness when they are practiced well. It's just a slightly alternative translation. And of course, the idea here is that the Dhamma, when you practice it in the right way, it is always kind of, it leads to a sense of well-being, because thinking in the right way, you are looking at the world in the right way. But it's not just that it leads to happiness straight away. It is also because the Dhamma is something which always kind of leads you onwards in happiness. And so it kind of moves, and the degree of happiness that you have in your life, the sense of meaning and joy and purpose and all of these things that are part of happiness, it is always going up, up, up. It's like you're on this incline, you're moving towards something here. and you don't really know where you're going, but it must be really good because there's always getting better, yeah? And this is the beauty of this, always moving towards something more positive, something more meaningful, something more powerful, something more profound, something with less suffering, less anxiety, less problems in life, more happiness, all of these positive things arising. And this is the promise of the Dhamma, is this being on this journey towards something very extraordinary, very interesting. We don't really know where the path is going, but we can see that it's heading towards something very exciting here. And sometimes you get a glimpse of this in your meditation practice. Yeah, sometimes when you have a nice meditation is going really well, then you get a feeling that there's something very profound going on with this entire spiritual path. The Dhamma, when practiced, the teaching, when practiced well, they bring a lot of happiness. This incline moving towards something here. And it also reminds me, when I'm talking, reminds me of those little suttas that I often read out. I teach retreats, and when we have a bit more time than we have on this particular retreat. And this is one of those little paradoxical suttas. There's a sutta where there's a monk called Samidhi. And this monk Samidhi, he has just had a bath, yeah, and he's come out of the water and he's kind of drying himself after coming out of this bath. And as he is standing there drying himself, this is a monk, yeah, and so he has kind of renounced the family life and all of these kind of things. And as he's standing there, this deva, the devata, comes to him. So who is this devata? We don't know if it really happened that way or it's just a symbol for temptation or what it is. We don't really know. But according to the story, this devata comes down to this monk Samidhi. And this devata, she says to this monk Samidhi, why have you become a monk? Yeah, you are still young. You are still you can enjoy the world as it is. Why have you given up on the happiness that is immediately available to you? Yeah, the happiness of the world. Why have you given up that to strive for some kind of happiness in the future? Yeah, nibbana or samadhi, who knows what it is? Yeah, why are you wasting your time on these silly pursuits when you can have all this happiness right now? Yeah, this is what this devata says to this monk. I think this monk, yeah, wow, yeah, maybe you have a point. Yeah, this good sense actually. Why am I worrying about all of these things that are in the future? Who knows about nibbana? Who knows about samadhi? Yeah, maybe Ajahn Brahmali can get samadhi, but no one else can get samadhi. That's the point. Yeah. So let's leave this kind of nonsense aside and let's go for the happiness that is here and now. Enjoy the food. Yeah. Eat 3 times a day. Not only have 1 meal a day and then eat a little bit in between as well, and have nice coffees. Have a good relationship with a nice partner. Live in a nice place. Enjoy some entertainments. Who wants to live this stupid monastic life? Yeah, maybe I should disrobe. Yeah, maybe there's no point in being a monk. And that is when Samidhi, he replies to this devata and he says, I have not abandoned what is happiness right here. I have not abandoned, I'm not seeking for this happiness in the future. In fact, I don't really fully understand what you are saying because this idea of time is so mysterious. And then they go to the Buddha and they ask the Buddha, well, how they should, the monk Samidhi, he says to this devata, let's put Buddha together. Yeah, and this deity is very wise, probably. Well, yeah, so she says, okay, you'll go to the Buddha. Okay, let's go to the Buddha together. And they go to the Buddha together. And the Buddha tells them, no, it is the happinesses of the world, the sensual pleasures of the world, all the things that we have in the world. That is what takes time. That is what you can't have straight away. That is what and is always temporal, it is, in a sense, always something moving towards the future. But the happiness of the Dhamma is right here and right now. And I think this is in part what this sutta is saying. Yeah, when you live the Dhamma well, it brings happiness, and it brings happiness straight away. So if you do what is right at this moment, if you do an act of kind of generosity coming from a kind heart, if you change your thinking around from being angry to having compassion, and you do that in this moment, in that moment you feel happiness. Dhamma practice is always available to you if we direct the mind in the right way. And this is the magic of the Dhamma. It's not, yes, there may be some future attainment that we can have as well, but it is also attainable to a small degree right here in the present moment. It is a matter of directing the mind in the right way and living in the right way, and then bang, it is there to you. But the sensual pleasures of the world, all the things that we own, they are often like a dream. We are dreaming about the future, dreaming about how things will be at a certain point. It is always related to craving, related to moving onward somewhere else. And even though they seem attainable right here and right now, they're almost always to do with craving, almost always with something more, desiring something else, moving on to something else. We're never really satisfied, never really, and because we're never really satisfied, never really happy, it is always about the future. That is the reality of the sensual realm. We don't understand that. We think that things are available to us, but they're only available in the sense that we crave for them. And as soon as you have reached them, craving moves on to something else. It's always about the future. It's such a beautiful parable because we get this so wrong, this idea that, you know, when you give something up, like giving up an ordinary life of the sensual pleasures, that we don't get any return, that we're searching for something that is out of reach, some kind of weird idea. What is this nibbana anyway? You know, who believes in this kind of stuff? Yeah, maybe the Buddha believed in this. Yeah, who can? But you know, actually, it isn't quite like that. Yeah, we need to be very careful. We need to gradually move on to the small happiness of the path. And when you start to see the small happinesses, and some of you will already have attained some of the medium happinesses, yeah, as well, maybe sometimes during meditation, and sometimes you may even get a glimpse of the higher happinesses, sometimes by observing people that are exceptional in this world, sometimes maybe through, you know, when you have some special meditation break or whatever, sometimes we see it. So don't fall into those traps. Yeah, it is so easy to get this thing, get the wrong end of the stick, and to misunderstand what is actually going on in this life. The Dhamma, when practiced well, brings happiness. Truth is really the sweetest of tastes. You see the truth of things when you understand that actually there is happiness to be had by living well, by being kind, by being generous. Yeah, when you get a glimpse of that, it is very powerful, and it really is very encouraging in your practice. When you have the first time that you have a glimpse of meditation practice being especially peaceful and especially happy, again, it's like, wow, this is really different. And you will notice, maybe sometimes you may have heard of people who've had a special day when the meditation went really well, and then they, you know, they kind of start craving for that meditation attainment, and they may spend the rest of their life to kind of get back to that attainment again in the future. And the reason is, the reason why these attainments become so powerful. Ajahn Brahm once called these powerful states of samadhi, he called them a positive trauma. It is a positive trauma, but once you had it, you can never get it out of your mind again. It becomes a very, very powerful influence on your mind. Yeah. So, and this is because they are so meaningful, they are so incredibly powerful, they are so blissful, but the feeling with these attainments that you are basically approaching the meaning of life itself. This is what life is really about. Everything else is so shallow. It's like not really real. It's like a dream. We're going through the motions, not really being in the moment, not really, you know, not really grappling with the reality in a sense. Everything is like a blur. And then you get into this moment when you get into something very powerful, very satisfactory, where nothing is missing, and you think, this is it. This is what I've been looking for all along. And you are starting to approach truth, reality. And that's why these deep meditation states are so incredibly compelling, so extraordinarily powerful. And you never, ever want to look for anything in your whole life once you see these things. And then, of course, go beyond that too. You go beyond and you go to the time of insight when you see even deeper into the nature of reality. And these, of course, are the things that make you awakened as a person. And of course, that is the truth. That is the sweetest truth of all when you have these kind of experiences. Why? Because once you have that, you really see reality. There's no doubt anymore. And also, you know that you are on that path. You know that you are heading in that direction yourself. This becomes extraordinarily powerful. Yeah, the sweetest of truths, or sweetest of taste is the taste of truth. And then the last one is the one living by wisdom, they say, lives the best. Yeah, is the again, we talked about this yesterday, that wisdom, I think yesterday we said that the one who has faith lives the best. So it's kind of interesting. Well, it said yesterday, let me just have a quick look what it said yesterday again. It said, wisdom. Yeah, it says yesterday, wisdom is the precious gem of humans. Yeah, actually, yeah, it says wisdom is the precious gem of humans. Today it said faith is a person's best treasure. Yeah, so wisdom is the precious gem of humans, and faith is a person's best treasure. It is almost exactly the same. Yeah, it is almost, I'm going back to the first line again of the verse. It's almost exactly the same. Kind of fascinating, yeah, how these Buddhist ideas, they can be swapped around. Yeah, faith can take the place of wisdom, wisdom can take the place of faith. And this is what I said before, that faith and wisdom are very closely related to each other. Yeah, so they are both that same kind of treasure, the same gem. Yeah, and the reason is because they are so closely related to each other, they go together. Yeah. Anyway, and here they say that one living by wisdom, they say, lives the best. Yeah, if you live by wisdom, you live the best. And of course, because when you are wise, it means that you understand how to act in the world, how to live, how to speak, yeah, how to live in such a way that it leads to happiness for yourself and also other people, how it leads to reduced problems, reduced everything here. And that is why this is the best way of living, if you live by wisdom. So there you are, little tiny little verse, but they're so rich because they just give you a general idea about the Dhamma, and then you have to kind of understand yourself what is going on. This is why they are such rich teachings. So let us go on to the next little sutta. This is also from the Devata Saṃyutta, and this is number 67. And this is how it reads in the English translation. The world is ensnared by craving. It is enveloped by old age. The world is shut in by death. The world is established on suffering. So that verse is the kind of verse. This is why Buddhism gets the bad reputation of verses like this. Yeah, because everyone says, "Oh, Buddhism so pessimistic. Oh, so dark. Yeah, only talking about suffering and about all of these kind of things." And so that's always fascinating. You know, we have to be very careful how we present these Buddhist teachings, because on the one hand, the idea of Buddhism is realistic. We want to really look at life for what it is. But on the other hand, we want to show that there is a way out. Yeah, there is this path of happiness, this path of always improving your life, always kind of feeling better, reducing the troubles and things. So on the one hand, it focuses on the reality of existence, and that is what it does here. On the other hand, it is optimistic in the sense that it also has the path leading out of these problems. So it starts off by saying the world is ensnared by craving. Yeah, so craving is what traps us in the world. Yeah, the world is like humanity. We are trapped or ensnared by craving. And this is true in a number of ways that we are trapped by craving. We are trapped by craving because it seems so innocent. Yeah, it seems like, oh, it's no no big deal, just following along, just enjoying the world. There's lots of happiness to be had in the world, and all that, the joys of the world. When we run after them, we are craving, and we are kind of believing that we are actually going to get these things of the world, and that they will give us some kind of satisfaction. That is what this is about. It seems so innocent. Yeah. What can possibly be wrong with a nice relationship? What can be wrong with kind of craving for the material things of the world? What's wrong with a little bit of status, right? And having a nice bank account? All of these things matter. This is kind of the idea. And then we crave for these things. We run after them. And I always, one of the things I always like to teach when I teach these retreats is one of the favorite similes in the suttas is the simile of the dog that goes to the butcher. And this is a simile for how craving drives our existence. In this simile of the dog that goes to the butcher, this is found in the Upanīyasutta, which I think is Majjhima Nikāya number 54, I think it is. And in this particular sutta, and many of you will have heard the sutta before, but it's a very powerful simile. It's the simile of the dog waiting outside the butcher's shop. And when the dog is waiting outside the butcher's, it's kind of looking through the butcher's window, trying to look as cute as possible, because when you are cute, then people are more compassionate for you. This is why it's always good to be a cute person or a cute animal, because people tend to be nicer to you if you are cute. So this dog tries to be as cute as possible, looking up at the butcher, and sitting outside, craving for some meat, craving for some sustenance, hungry and weak, coming to the butcher shop. But of course, a butcher is not going to give anything of value to a dog. The butcher is a business person. They are going to throw out, at the very most, they're going to throw out a bone. So the butcher scrapes off all the meat. The meat can be sold to the people in the street. Then it takes the bare bone, the bare skeleton, the bare remains, and throws it out to the dog. And the dog is so excited. Yay, a bone. Now I can eat this bone. And on the bone, all there is some blood, because the bones are often smeared with blood. So the dog gets the taste. It gets the taste, but it doesn't get any real sustenance. There's nothing there to really satisfy you. You never really feel satisfied. And then the dog, because it's satisfied, all it does is get the taste of these pleasures of the senses, the bone, the blood that is there. It runs off to the next butcher. And again, it sits out the butcher shop waiting for another bone. Another bone comes out. The butcher is just as lacking in generosity as before. And another bone to the dog, and the dog again gets the taste of the blood, does not get satisfied, and runs off to the next butcher. And it keeps on doing this again and again and again, never finding true satisfaction. And eventually the dog dies. And then when the dog dies, it gets reborn. And when it gets reborn as a little puppy. And as soon as the puppy gets reborn, its mom says, let's go to the butcher shop. And the puppy comes with his mother, sitting outside the butcher shop, waiting for that bone, waiting for some meat. But the real meat never comes. Again, all it is a bone smeared with blood. And on it goes, from one life to the next one to the next one, on and on and on, never learning the lesson that there is no satisfaction in these sensual pleasures. There is no real satisfaction in this human realm as long as you look for that in the sensual pleasures. And it's such a powerful simile, because it's very hard to see this in our lives. It's very difficult to see how we're always running after things, new relationships, new experiences, a new house, and new this and new that, always running after it, never finding that satisfaction that we're looking for. And that satisfaction can only be found living the spiritual life. And especially if you build up those spiritual qualities to the point where you can actually access deep meditations, that is where you can find that true satisfaction for the first time. And this is precisely why these states are the very meaning of life, because you find exactly what you have been looking for all along. Real satisfaction, Why is that? Because the happiness that comes in samadhi, the happiness that comes in meditation, the happiness that comes from the Dhamma is a happiness in the present moment that has nothing to do with craving, nothing to do with running on into the future, but it's here and now. It is final satisfaction. The craving is completely gone. Because the craving is gone, there's no looking to the future. You're happy in the present. So we are bound by this craving, ensnared by it. It is so important to us. It is important to us because we identify with the craving as well. Yeah, we identify with the craving because craving gives us a reason to the world. When we crave, we do. Yeah, this is kind of the nature of craving. Oh, I desire, I must have an ice cream. So I run off to the ice cream shop. I need to do this. I crave for that. And this is what makes us act in the world. If you have no craving, you just sit still. You just enter samadhi all the time. There's nothing to be done. It is craving that drives our human existence. And we identify because we identify with the doer inside. Yeah, we are the doer in our life. So we welcome craving because we want to be the doers, because that doing gratifies our sense of self. We feel alive when we do because we identify with that doer. Do you see what I mean? It's a marvelous way of thinking about existence. You can see that because of our sense of self, and this is a very deep-seated thing, because these things are very deeply buried in the human or even any being's psyche, this sense of identity. And because we identify with doing it, because we are the agent in our own life, because we are, this is one of the most deep-seated attachments that we have. Because of that, we welcome craving, because craving brings out the doer in us, and it brings out that identity, and we gratify that identity, and we feel good about it. And that is why it is very common for people to be doers. Yeah, we see a lot of people who are very strong doers, and they can see this sometimes even in monastic life, that people are very doers, and that doing comes from that sense of self. We gratify the self. We feel alive when we do. Yeah, our existence has a purpose, and that is okay. Please don't be hard on yourself because you are a doer, because it's just part and parcel of who we are. So the best thing to do then, if you identify with a doer, is to channel that doing initially into good things, and then very slowly and gradually you can maybe even let go a little bit of that doer you so. So this is why we are trapped by craving. Yeah, these are two very powerful reasons right there for you that we are trapped by craving. But even more importantly, the very root problem, that craving is what binds us to samsaric existence, binds us to rebirth. Yeah, so it says in the Sutta, it often has this beautiful saying that we are bound, we are hindered by ignorance and bound by craving. In other words, we are blinded because we don't understand reality as it actually is. And because of that blindness, and we crave in existence at the same time, the craving binds us to samsaric existence, drives us on, pulls it on from one life to the next one. Why is that? Well, because craving is always about the future. Craving is always about going somewhere else. And when you die, because the craving is still with you, you're not finished with the going. You're projecting yourself into a new existence. Your consciousness is inclining towards a new life. And that inclination of consciousness means that consciousness carries on. The only way to stop that is for consciousness, is for your mind, for your inner life, not to incline towards anything, but to be perfectly satisfied with what you have now. Then there is no inclination towards the future here. So this is very powerful stuff. Yeah, we are ensnared by craving here. Yeah, the world means we, it means humanity, it means beings. Yeah, are ensnared by craving. It is enveloped by age. Yeah, it sounds kind of pessimistic. The world is enveloped by age. What do you mean enveloped by old age? Yeah, surely that kind of sounds a bit over the top. So what can this possibly mean? Well, what it means is that old age is always there waiting for us to arrive. Yeah, eventually we all have to get old. And if we don't get old, it's even worse. Yeah, the alternative to getting old is worse, because it means you have to die young. So at the very best, we get old, but still getting old is not nice. But it is something that is unavoidable. It is something that is waiting for us in the future. Maybe that future isn't that far away. And as you do get older, if you are not super old, but you are in your 50s and 60s, and you can see how gradually your vitality, your strength, your faculties, they start to decline. Yeah, you have to wear glasses after a while. Without glasses, you can see anything. And so when I take my glasses off, I can just see a blur. I can see that there are some people on the screen. I'm not really sure who you are when I have to take my glasses off. This is another thing. So I guess I'm getting old, but I don't want to get old. Help! What am I going to do? This is the problem. Yeah, you can see these things happening. We are enveloped by old age, because old age, there is no choice. You have to get there. It is always part of life. Yeah, it is around us, waiting to kind of come out. It is inside of us already, and eventually old age must happen. And if we are ready for it, then we look ourselves in the mirror and we see the gray hair, yeah, and we think, okay, gray hair, no problem. We see the wrinkles coming out, yeah, and we think, okay, wrinkles, no problem. We see our eyesight starting to fail, okay, eyesight starting to fail there. And we can deal with these things. Why? Because we are prepared to understand that the world is enveloped in old age. These things must happen. The world is shut in by death. Death is kind of the final point in our lives, and we don't really know what is going to happen after we die. Yeah, we are limited by death, if you like. Once death happens, everything beyond death is kind of uncertain. That is the limit. That is all we really know. So we are kind of limited to this life. This life is what we can see. So our perspective on existence is very shut in. It is very narrow. Yeah, it is very contained to this one existence from the moment we are born to the moment that we die. That is all we can really know. And anything beyond that is beyond most people's ability to realize. So we are shut in by death. And of course, that is kind of problematic. It is problematic because it means that we lack that big overview of existence that might help us to understand life in a better way. Yeah. Even if you believe in the idea of rebirth, and the idea of rebirth makes sense to you, even if that is the case, it is still a belief. It is not as seeing rebirth for yourself, in which case it is far more powerful. Yeah, these things become very powerful when you see them, but when you believe in them, okay, they still help, but they're nowhere near as powerful. So we have limited in our scope for understanding existence. Yeah, we are limited by death. Death is like the final boundary here. So some degree of confidence and faith in the teachings of Buddha are necessary. Yeah, and this is where the idea of rebirth comes in. And once you have that idea of rebirth, then it expands out your horizons, and it makes you think about life in a very different way, because you start to invest in your existence in a different way. You start to understand, in part, the power of spirituality, the importance of investing in your mind, investing in your heart, investing in our inner life. The inner life cannot be taken away from us. Nobody can rob us from our inner experiences. Like it said yesterday, the thief cannot steal our merit, cannot steal our inner life. So this is what becomes important. Yeah, we start to understand the importance of this. And then the last one, which is even more pessimistic, the world is established on suffering, yeah, is grounded on suffering. It's like, it's so powerful, and it's very hard, again, to kind of relate to properly here. But it is this idea that whatever you do in life, whatever you do, one of the foundations of our existence, the very possibility of existing anywhere and anything here, suffering is always part of it. Suffering is part and parcel. It is inherent to this thing we call existence. If you have 5 khandhas, if you have a mind, if you have a body, and suffering is going to come along, whether you want to or not. This whole thing is founded on suffering. Yeah, you can expect suffering in your life if you even exist. And this is idea that the world is grounded on suffering. There is escape from that suffering as long as you are existing, as long as you are part of this whole cycle of existence. So when you read these kind of things, remember that this is the Buddha speaking. This is kind of moving us a little bit towards right view, towards understanding the reality of existence. But remember at the same time that the path is always there. The path is available. Yeah, the upside of this is that there is a path that leads you, even in small ways, to so many positive and beneficial things. Little happinesses in life, little joys in life, little positive things, that happen as a consequence of the spiritual path. So don't think of this in a negative way. Just think of it as a way of reflecting that moves you on to the spiritual path. And because it moves you on to the spiritual path, it actually has the potential for happiness rather than suffering. So if you use this in the right way, it will bring great benefit rather than being something to be depressed about. Okay, let's go on to the next verse. So this next verse is again from the Devata saṃyutta of gods, and this is the third sutta. And this sutta goes as follows. Life is swept along, short is the lifespan. No shelter exists for one who has reached old age. Seeing clearly this danger in death, a seeker of peace, drop the world's bait. So this verse is very similar to the previous one. It talks about old age and death, but here it ends up with the path. It ends up with the way out of the problem, and that is the idea of dropping the world's bait. Is really the coming out of the problem, which is the bottom there. So, but just very briefly, I'm going to comment on this briefly now because we have looked at this in detail already. Life is swept along, short is the lifespan. This is very similar to the idea of the world is ensnared by craving. It's very similar to that because we are swept along, we rush along, craving us by the nose. There's a nice saying somewhere in the suttas that craving, we are the slaves to craving. Craving is like the master. Craving is like the whipping us over the back and telling us to come along, and we are the slaves to craving. So we are swept along by this craving. We are rushing around, doing all the things that we should do, never really standing back and asking the question, what is this all about? What is the purpose of this life? What is the meaning of all of this? And it's, when you look at people in the world, it is so common for people to kind of just carry on with life and do all the things that need to be done. You start out with, getting an education when you're young, doing what your parents say, then getting married, maybe having children, getting a job somewhere. And all of this becomes all encompassing. This becomes your entire life. And I'm sure many of you can relate to that because these things are very time consuming. Looking after children, having a career, this is enough in their own right to occupy you full time. And because that is so all consuming as a life, all of this means that you don't really have time to reflect properly. What am I doing this for? What is the purpose of all of this? And we become like little robots going through these things, doing these things without ever really trying to understand what life is about. And it becomes almost like a play. We're kind of playing out this role, doing these things. And just like being actors in our own play, a play doesn't really have any purpose. A play is just, if you are the actor in the play, the only purpose is to have a kind of audience around you. But the play itself doesn't really have any purpose for the actor apart from the effect on the audience. In the same way, when we're living this play, living this theater of our own life, going through the motions, doing all of this. It doesn't really have any purpose apart from doing the thing doing it. There's no greater purpose to these things. And sometimes if you live your life like that, on automatic, just trying to do the right things, living the life in an ordinary way, trying to kind of make ends meet and doing the things of the world, then life can often become very empty and very pointless, because we wonder, what is it all about? What is this life anyway? Yes, you grow up and you work hard, and then what? And then you die. Why? What is this? What is all of this? You know what I mean? It seems so silly. We're just going through all of these motions in a kind of pointless manner. And we die, and then we're reborn, and we do it all again. Why am I doing this again and again and again? Life after life, 1,000 lifetimes, 1,000,000 lifetimes, eon after eon, the same thing. Is there any point to this? And it seems so stupid. It seems so hollow. It seems so pointless. It seems like I'm trapped in this thing by some kind of crazy, don't know what it is, whether someone is trapping me or it's just the way the world is. Of course, it's just the way the world is. And then we step back and we start to look and we see what's going on. And then we realize, actually, this is not good enough. I want to do something more with my life. I want to do something meaningful. And what that means is that instead of just going through the motions, instead of accepting life the way it is, we imbue our life with qualities that have to do with the spiritual path. We don't have to make any drastic changes. We don't even have to change our job. We don't have to quit our family or anything like that. You can live with your family, you can live with your job, but you can change your attitude to those things. And the attitude can become one of kindness, one of passion, of caring, one where we actually do something good in the world. Yes, of course, some people may choose to become monks and nuns, and that's wonderful if you do that. I certainly don't think that is a problem at all, but it's not as if everyone has to become a monastic. Yeah, you can still live in a meaningful way with living as a layperson, but you imbue your life with these qualities. You start to think about life in a different way. You don't just go through the motions anymore, but you start to think, how am I going through these motions? How can I make life more meaningful? You are no longer swept away. Instead, you climb out of the stream. You climb out of the stream, you stand on the bank and you look at the stream and you see the craving in your life and you get a bit of perspective, and then you change your attitude to everything here. Short is the lifespan. Yeah, the lifespan is sometimes we live for 80 or 90 years, but still things happen very fast. And then you come to the end and you wonder what happened. One of my favorite suttas, which I sometimes read out, is called the Sutta. Actually, not one of my favorites. That's an exaggeration of the suttas that kind of bring home this point very nicely. Is the Sutta. And in that sutta, there is this teacher called Araka, who was a very powerful meditator, free of sensual delights, yeah, and he went into the jhanas and these kind of things, and he had this teaching, and what he taught his disciples was that life is short and full of suffering. That was the teaching. And then he goes on with all these beautiful similes about how short life is, yeah, and how difficult life is. And at the very end of the suttas, it says, well, at that time, the lifespan of human beings was 60,000 years. Life is short, yeah, 60,000 years long. Yeah. Okay, so you can see now why you have a problem, right? So 60,000 years long. So how many of us live to 60,000? Not so many. And it wouldn't be good to live to 60,000, because if you live to 60,000, I think we would have some serious problems with these ordinary bodies of ours. Maybe if you are a deva, you can live to 60,000, but I think a human body, 60,000 would not be a very pretty sight. So you live to 60,000 years, yeah, life is short and full of suffering. And the kind of suffering they had at that time was going to the toilet, heat and cold. Those were the sufferings at that time, yeah? So that was all they had in terms of suffering here. So that tells you that, in our human existence, if we have that kind of perspective on life, then sort of start to see what this Dhamma is really about. And everything tends to go in a flash if you don't live your life wisely. No shelter exists for one who has reached old age. Yeah, and or you can say that if you are led on in this way, if you are swept along, then there is no shelter. Because remember that the shelter that we have is our good actions. So if you are swept along by the world, never really thinking about the world in the right way, then you have made no shelter for yourself. And then when you die, you don't have that inner strength. That strength would actually enables you to deal with life well when you are about to die here. When you die, what do you have? Not much. Yeah, you have to leave everything behind. I mentioned, obviously we have to leave almost everything in our life behind, and the only thing that we have left, the only resource that really remains with us is our inner qualities. So if you want to if you want to have a shelter when you die, you have to build up those inner qualities while we still exist. That is going to be the resource that you have to live on when you are about to die. That is all you have left. Apart from that, you're going to be all by yourself, all alone, and there's no one else around to support you. So make sure that you build up those inner resources in this life, otherwise you have no shelter. Seeing clearly this danger in death, a seeker of peace drops the world's bait. What is the world's bait? Well, the world's bait, all the marvelous, wonderful things in the world. Yeah, yay, the world. The world has so many marvelous things. You can travel here and there and see all of these kind of wonderful things and go to this country and that country. And, the only place I don't want to go is to Perth, because there I have to go to Jhana Grove, and I don't want to go to I go to, to China and see the Great Wall, or to Paris, or to, I don't know where we want to go, or go to a safari in Africa or whatever. And yay, the world is full of so many exciting things. Yeah, that is what we think. And that's the world's bait, the idea that if you keep on looking in the world, you will find something satisfying, even though there is no such thing in the world. So you drop the world's bait and then you look for satisfaction on the spiritual path. So there you are. That is that little sutta. And I'm not going to talk more about it. I could talk some more, but I think that's enough on that sutta, because we think we should get a little bit further along. So let's move on to the next sutta. So this next sutta is a sutta from the Majjhima Nikāya, number 125. It's been translated as the grade of the tamed, which is a strange translation. But if you call the level of the tamed, in other words, what it means is like when you are tamed, yeah, when you are tamed internally, or you are tamed internally, or you are tamed, it means that you reach a certain level which is different from the level someone is untamed. It's like you reach a higher level in a sense. Yeah, this is what is meant here by the idea of grade. Yeah, you reach a kind of higher sort of existence. And this sutta talks a little bit more about some of the issues we have talked about already, and it talks in particular about the idea of samadhi, and the meaning of samadhi, and how this can actually be understood. So it is more really about the idea of right view, but again, right view cannot really be distinguished from the other parts of the Buddhist path. So this is a short extract from that sutta, and this is an extract. This is a discussion between a novice monk called Uḍḍitasutta and a prince called Jayasena. This is what this discussion is about, and they are having a discussion about the Dhamma. Yeah, and the discussion is about the idea of samadhi. And this novice Uḍḍitasutta, he tells this prince that there is such a thing called samadhi. Yeah, and of course, if you explain the idea of samadhi, it sounds pretty out there. It sounds pretty kind of amazing. Yeah, absolute bliss, complete stillness of mind, total unification. Yeah, it feels like you have reached the meaning and very purpose of life itself. There's no external disturbances at all. The five senses are completely gone. The body is gone. You're completely within yourself. It's the greatest feeling of satisfaction that you have ever had in your whole life. Kind of coming back home. That's kind of feeling, coming back home to the real you, the real essence of who you are. That's kind of the feeling, even though it isn't really an essence. Yeah, all of these things. Samadhi is one of those astonishing and amazing things on the path. Sometimes you hear Ajahn Brahm talk about these things, but really it is something extraordinarily special. And it's sometimes hard to really bring out how special these kind of things are. So, of course, when the novice Archiravata tries to explain to this prince what it means, it's going to be difficult, because this prince, he enjoys the sensual pleasures of the world, and he has maybe lots of wives. That's what they had in those days. They had heaps of wives and had maybe a big house, and all this kind of stuff. It's hard for him to understand how you can renounce all of that and actually find a far superior happiness by renouncing the worldly things. This is what is so difficult to understand. Renounce all the worldly things and you actually find something even more satisfactory. Sounds impossible if you are a prince. So let's have a look at this. So then, after they're having this conversation, then the novice Archiravata, he taught Prince Jayasena the Dhamma as he had heard it and mastered it. After he had spoken, Prince Jayasena remarked, "It is impossible, Master Agivesana. It cannot happen that a bhikkhu who abides diligent, energetic, and resolute can achieve unification of mind. Yes, samadhi is impossible. Go away, you silly novice. I don't want to have anything to do with you." Then, having declared to the novice Archiravata that this was impossible and could not happen, Prince Jayasena rose from his seat and departed in a huff. In a huff is kind of sort of not stated, but that's the feeling you get. Yeah, he's kind of dismissing this whole idea of the Dhamma that you can achieve some kind of state of samadhi. Soon after Prince Jayasena had left, the novice Archiravata went to the Blessed One. He went to the Buddha. After paying homage to the Blessed One, he sat down to one side and reported to the Blessed One his entire conversation with Prince Jayasena. When he had finished, the Blessed One said to him, "Agivesana," this is the other name of this Archiravata, "Agivesana, how is it possible that Prince Jayasena, living in the midst of sensual pleasures, enjoying sensual pleasures, being devoured by thoughts of sensual pleasures, being consumed by the fever of sensual pleasures, bent on the search for sensual pleasures, could know, see, or realize that which must be known through renunciation, seen through renunciation, attained through renunciation, realized through renunciation? That is impossible." So here the Buddha is saying that if someone is really committed to sensual existence, committed to the pleasures of the world, committed to enjoying all the things in life, relationships, and just all the enjoyments that life brings, if you are really committed to that, and you will notice some very powerful statements there, being devoured by the thought of sensual pleasures, consumed by the fever of sensual pleasures. It is almost like these cravings are eating us alive. We are not really satisfied. It is actually a kind of suffering that we're undergoing. We are suffering, but we don't understand that we are suffering. We think that we are freely choosing this craving, feel that we are freely choosing to go after the happiness of things in the world. And actually, it is a craving that is in charge. And craving is torturing us. Craving is consuming us. Craving is devouring us as we go along, because actually it is a state of suffering that we're going through. Craving itself is suffering. If you look at the First Noble Truth, the First Noble Truth says that not getting what you want is suffering. Yeah, or being united with what you don't want is suffering. So craving is suffering itself. Craving is actually part of the first noble truth. We sometimes forget that. We sometimes think that craving is only the cause of suffering, yeah, in the second noble truth, but that is actually different, because in the second noble truth, crave is the cause of suffering because it brings rebirth. Yeah, that is why it is suffering. But craving itself actually is suffering as part of the first noble truth. This is a very important point that people often forget. And this is why we are consumed and devoured by these things. And that is why it is so hard to understand what life can be like if we end that craving. If craving comes to a stop, yeah, and everything kind of ends, it sounds bland, it sounds boring. Yeah, what are you going to do? Just be bored, just sit there, and it sounds really terrible. Yeah, you've got to have some purpose in life. But no, if you end craving in the right way, by practicing the spiritual path, instead of being bored, you actually find the exact opposite. You find the highest meaning you can possibly find. But it is very, very hard to understand unless you have faith in that there is such a thing, or you have some glimpse that actually it is true. Yeah. So Prince Jayasena, which obviously has had no such glimpse, and of course he doesn't have any faith either, he will not understand what is going on there. And then the Buddha moves on to a couple of similes to explain what is going on. So you can bring back the sutta now if you like. And the Buddha says, suppose, Agivesana, there were two tameable elephants, two tameable horses, or two tameable oxen, and that were well tamed and well disciplined, and two tameable elephants, horses, or oxen that were untamed and undisciplined. What do you think, Agivesana? Would the two tameable elephants, horses, and oxen that were well tamed and well disciplined acquire the behavior of the tamed? Would they arrive at the level of the tamed? Yes, Venerable Sir. But would the two tameable elephants, horses, or oxen that were untamed and undisciplined, being untamed, would they acquire the behavior of the tamed? Would they arrive at the level of the tamed, like the two tameable other ones that were well disciplined? No, Venerable Sir. So too, Agivesana, it is impossible that Prince Jayasena, living in the midst of sensual pleasures, could know or see or realize that which must be known through renunciation, seen through renunciation, attained through renunciation, realized through renunciation. So the point here is very simple. Yeah, a very simple point that to become tamed, yeah, I don't know if you are keen on becoming tamed, but if you want to become tamed, this is the opportunity. So if you want to be tamed, you have to go through the practice, and that practice is the Noble Eightfold Path. That practice means to be kind. That practice means to be caring. That practice has to do with our attitude to the world. That practice does not necessarily mean that you have to live an incredibly restrained and harsh lifestyle. But most of it, what it means, the most important part of what it means is the quality of your heart. Sila is the cause for meditation throughout the Buddhist teachings. So have a good heart and you will go a long, long way on this path. Yeah, so practicing this in the right way, that the person who has done that and really purified themselves by having a really good sila, by even thinking in the right way, they are the ones who will start to understand what this is all about. But not those people who haven't trained in this way. For them, it is impossible. Yeah, obviously, and this is kind of the simile here that the Buddha uses. So Prince Jayasena is this untamed prince. He's the wild prince, yeah, roaming around in the jungle of sensual pleasures, not kind of clearing that jungle and looking at it from above. So this is the problem here. But now comes the second simile. And this second simile is, I think, even more interesting. So if we can please have the sutta back on again. And this simile goes as follows. Suppose Agivesana, there were a high mountain, not far from a village or town, and two friends would leave the village or town and approach the mountain hand in hand. Having reached it, one friend would remain below at the foot of the mountain, while the other would climb to the top. Then the friend who remained below at the foot of the mountain would say to the friend who stood on the top, "Well, friend, what do you see standing on top of the mountain?" And the other replied, "Standing on top of the mountain, friend, I see lovely parks, lovely groves, lovely meadows, and lovely ponds." Then the first friend at the foot of the mountain would say, "It is impossible, friend, it cannot happen, that while standing on top of the mountain, you should see lovely parks, lovely groves, lovely meadows, and lovely ponds." And this is what happens when you have no faith. Yeah, you don't trust the people around you. You don't trust your spiritual teachers. You think, yeah, this spiritual teacher, that Buddha, what did that Buddha know? Yeah, he didn't know anything. I don't trust what he's saying. Go away, Buddha. Just leave me alone. I want to enjoy my sensual pleasures. Yeah, I don't believe any of this nonsense about suffering in the world and about jhanas and samadhi. Just leave me alone. Yeah. So what happens if someone has no faith? Well, what happens is that the Buddha has compassion for you. So what happens? The Buddha, then it says, then the other friend would come down to the foot of the mountain. He would take his friend by the arm and make him climb to the top of the mountain. After giving him a few moments to catch his breath, he would ask, "Well, friend, standing on top of the mountain, what do you see?" And his friend would say, "Standing on top of the mountain, friend, I see lovely parks, lovely groves, lovely meadows, and lovely ponds." He's feeling a bit sheepish now. Then the other would say, "Friend, just a little early we heard you say, 'It is impossible, friend. It cannot happen that while standing on top of the mountain, you should see these things. But just now you see, standing here, I do see these things. So what do you mean? Which one is right?" And then the first friend would reply, "Because I was obstructed by this high mountain, friend. I did not see what was there to be seen." This is this beautiful simile of the idea of climbing the mountain. Climbing the mountain is like attaining a state of samadhi. Yeah, it is like emerging from the jungle of sensual pleasures, elevating yourself, bringing you up to a high level. And when you bring yourself up to a high level, you get the bird's eye view and you can see what is actually going on. And this is the idea here with samadhi. You get the bird's eye view of life, the bird's eye view of the sensual world, the limits of the sensual world, the happiness of the sensual world, and you understand what it is really about. And as long as we are immersed in the sensual world, in the sensual jungle, we cannot really understand what is going along here. And then the Buddha comes along, yeah, the Buddha grasps us by the arm and says, "Come this way." And then we resist, yeah, just like you may remember that famous simile of Ajahn Brahmali with the worm and its lovely pile of dung, yeah, a spiritual teacher, the Buddha, comes and takes us by the hand, tries to pull the little worm out. But the worm says, "No, I like my dung. I like my sensual pleasures." That's the simile here, yeah, make no mistake. I apologize, but this is how this works. Yeah, I want my dung. I want my sensual pleasures. I'm going to show you something better. Yeah, I'm going to show you the heavenly realm. I'm going to show you samadhi. No, let go. And there's no way that the Buddha is going to be able to pull you out if you are too stubborn, but grasping on to those sensual pleasures. So you slip, the grip of the Buddha slips. Yeah, he can't hold on to you, and the worm burrows back into the pile of dung again, because the dung is so wonderful, the most happy, the best dung in the world. This is my dung. Don't touch my dung. Leave me to it. I enjoy it so much. And this is similar to that, similar to this kind of idea. The Buddha gently, yeah, with compassion and care, guides us to the top of the mountain, showing us that we were wrong all along. And then when we get to the top of the mountain, then for the first time, can we actually understand what is going on? Because now, when we have extracted ourselves, pulled ourselves out of the sensual world, only then is it possible to understand what is going on. When you rise up in that beautiful balloon to gain the bird's eye view, to understand what the world is like, then you can understand the sensual pleasures, not while you are immersed in them. And you can also read that story also in Ajahn Brahm's book, The Opening of the Door of Your Heart. Yeah, the story of when Ajahn Brahm climbs the pyramid in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, or is it Guatemala, one of those countries? And when he climbs the pyramid, yeah, he can understand this feeling of a spiritual experience of the ancient Mayan civilization when they would climb those pyramids and suddenly get an overview, an understanding of the jungle. And Ajahn Brahm realized this is like meditation practice, like the spiritual life, emerging from the ordinary world, giving you access to something more profound, understanding what the world really is like. Yeah, in the meantime, we are all going to hold on a little bit to the sensual world. And don't worry too much if you hold on to that. It is almost unavoidable that we will hold on to that world to some extent. And the reason is because we all need some degree of happiness. But at least have the confidence that there is something more to be had. Have the confidence that these teachings, there's something very powerful and profound going on with these teachings. And if you have that confidence, and if you practice in accordance with those teachings, and you are leaning in the right direction, then one day you too will hopefully be able to experience some of this. And that is the beginning, yeah? And that is kind of how you really get into this practice. There's a few nice little things in that sutta. We'll carry on only for a few more minutes now. But I like the idea, after you come to the top of the mountain, it says there that he gives it a bit of time to catch his breath. Yeah, it's kind of nice, a nice little additional thing that has been added in there. And the idea behind that is that sometimes we need to reflect a little bit on our experience. Yeah, we have a samadhi experience. We reflect on it, we understand the meaning, and when we reflect on it and we understand the meaning, that's like catching our breath, then we understand the power of these things. Buddhism is a lot about reflection. It's a lot about thinking about things in the right way. And when we do that, it actually gives it gives us the right understanding of these things. Anyway, the Buddha then finishes off the simile, and he says, so too, Agivesana, Prince Jayasena is obstructed, hindered, blocked, and enveloped by a still greater mass than the mass of the mountain. He is enveloped by the mass of ignorance. Thus, it is impossible that Prince Jayasena, living in the midst of sensual pleasures, yeah, and you have this whole range of things, the midst of sensual pleasure, the being devoured by sensual pleasures, all of that, could know, see, and realize that which must be known through renunciation, seen through renunciation, attained through renunciation, and realized through renunciation. I should say briefly that the word renunciation here, the Pali word is nekama, and the Pali word nekama means the opposite of indulgence in sensual pleasures. It means the opposite of attaching to all the sensual things of the world. It does not necessarily mean becoming a monastic. Yeah, I know that many people use that word in that way. We're going to renounce means we become a monastic, but actually in this kind of context, it just means kind of giving up that attachment to the sensual world. Yeah, and you will see that even ordinary people, they have various degrees of attachment. And that's why people, even in ordinary life, will have various degrees of ability in meditation because of those various degrees of attachment. So it is like a gradual path, yeah, of giving up some of these attachments. And some lay people are not all that attached to the sensual world. And for that reason, they tend to be far happier people as a consequence. And so that is the problem, yeah? Enveloped, blocked by the great mass of ignorance. It is the biggest, bad mass in the world, stopping us from seeing reality. And our job on the Buddhist path is to eliminate that ignorance. by eliminating the cravings and all of that, eliminating the 5 hindrances, and then eventually seeing things according to reality here. So that is a little bit about the idea of samadhi, the idea about how to have faith and to understand and have confidence that there are these things, how to understand it a little bit with right view. All of this kind of revolves around the idea of right view and thinking about things in the right way. And that is where I'm going to end with the talk today. So let's have a 5-minute break, yeah? And we continue with the meditation in about 5 minutes' time. Okay, everyone, so let's get down to business, as I say again, and let's do some meditation together here. So I recommend you to get into a nice routine whereby you go through the kind of basic steps of meditation every time you sit down, and make sure that you always look at your body to make sure you are, comfortable and at ease, and you go through this process so that you know that you get it right, even if it is kind of a few days into the retreat. It is still good to go through the same procedure just to make sure that everything is right and you are ready for the meditation. So sit comfortably, be at ease. The meditation will be about just over 40 minutes long. So make sure you have the right posture for that. And as always in your meditation practice, make sure that you just go with the flow, especially as you start out, just allowing things to be. And sometimes it can be hard to do that. It can be hard just to allow things to be, because very often we think that we have to be in a certain way or do certain things or not have certain defilements or whatever. But in meditation, it is important not to be critical, not to judge what is happening here. The more judgmental you are, the more you think that things are right or wrong, the more likely it is that you will get involved and you will do things and you will control and you will say, no, I must not think like that. I must not think like this. Instead, sit back, allow things to be. Accept yourself for who you are. You are plenty good enough as it is already. And accept that for what it is. And just observe and allow things to flow on. And so you can be at ease and you can really just enjoy this opportunity to sit back and do nothing whatsoever. And if you are able, try to notice that sense of peace that comes from the absence of doing anything, not doing anything at all, and just allowing the mind to rest. Even that is quite delightful. And if you can see that, if you can appreciate that, and you can incline your mind towards the non-doing, towards that beautiful sense of peace and ease that comes from accepting things as they are, then already you are doing quite well. Okay, everyone. So coming close to the end of the meditation, and once again, I recommend you to take a few moments just to review what has happened. And if you do feel more peaceful, more at ease, or whatever, then ask yourself gently, why is that the case? How does this process of meditation actually work? Okay, yeah, everyone. So have a nice day. Continue your retreat, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ajahn. Thank you, Ajahn.
You're welcome.